there. Welcome to the August 2024 edition of ZoomTrak by NRail. NRail is the organization promoting in-scale model railroading. That's NTrak and T-Trak, Free-Mo-In, club layouts, home layouts, no layouts, whatever your pleasure. If it's an in-scale, it's us. NRail is all about knowledge and camaraderie and joy of model railroading in the normal scale. So again, welcome everyone. Got a full lineup this afternoon to share with you. That will include Talkin T-TRAK with Terry. That's a pre-recorded video, it'll be about 5 minutes or so. We'll then move to Peninsulas and Balloon Modules with Steve Gillette. That is, I think, about 20 minutes. And end with a primer on LEDs with Steve Engelhard. I think that's about 30 minutes or so. And finally, Bruce Alcock wonders aloud if we might actually end on time today. We'll top off the hour with our participant poll like we always do. And so what do you say we just get started with that kickoff video? Bruce?
Welcome to Talkin T-TRAK. This month, we'll talk about number 4 turnouts. Number 4 turnouts have all that extra track number 6s don't. Here's why. This is all the stuff in that number 4 turnout package, but what's it all for? 2 of those straight track pieces have portions of their ballast trimmed away. S60L and S60R, shown here next to a common track piece to show how much of their ballast is trimmed away, are 60 millimeters long. Why are they included with the number 4 turnouts, and why the unusual 60 millimeter length? So why the cut-off section of ballast from the S60 pieces? Simply, to allow clearance for the ballast on the track pieces to be attached, regardless of straight or curved track in either orientation. The straight track length of a number 4 turnout is 126 millimeters, 2 millimeters longer than the 124 millimeter straight, creating a 2 millimeter issue that needs to be dealt with. Enter the 60 millimeter straight. Since the straight track length of a number 4 turnout is 126 millimeters, not the normal 124, adding the trimmed 60 millimeter track piece to the turnout creates an overall track length of 186 millimeters, a standard straight track length. With a 62 millimeter piece of straight track added to the end of the S60, an overall straight track length of 248 millimeters results. Add the 481 millimeter radius curve to create an S-curve as an entrance to a parallel siding track, and the end of the curve is at the end of the straight, creating a total package length of 248 millimeters, a standard straight track length. Now, equal track length and matching termination points may not be as important for home layouts, but the constraints of T-Trak module sizes requires that all tracks terminate equally at the edge of the modules. Construction of yard ladders will place the S60 trim pieces on the end of the turnout's curve. Creating yard ladders with number 4 turnouts requires the use of the various short pieces of track Caddo has, or the adjustable length track piece, to achieve a common endpoint on a triple module in this example. In some instances, it may be necessary to trim an available piece of track to fit to create the track plan required outside of T-Trak, such as home layouts. The 60 millimeter trim pieces shown in the yard ladder above could be replaced with custom-made trimmed track pieces that would remove the need for some of the 64 millimeter long pieces, but would not remove the need for all of them. in the row of track. The orange track pieces are custom trimmed, removing the need for a 60 mm and a 64 mm track piece in the row of track. This yard ladder design fits on a T-Trak triple module. Match the trim of the 60 mm track pieces on any Cato straight track piece with a hobby saw. Since modifying the factory number 4 turnouts has been strongly recommended, these left and right turnout pairs are now an option. If one of the one-piece crossovers is superimposed over a crossover constructed with the various track pieces, it is shown as being the same, 248 mm length and all. Just one more thing. The 64 mm straight track piece placed between a pair of number 4 turnouts to create a crossover will result in parallel track spacing of 49.5 mm, the track spacing created by a crossover constructed of a pair of number 6 turnouts. That also creates a crossover module the length of a single T-Trak module. Thanks again for watching.
All righty. All righty. Now, I suspected some of that to be the case, but I always did wonder why there were so many pieces with the number 4. I bet some of you, the rest of you did too. All right, super. All right, next up is peninsulas and balloon modules with Mr. Gillette. Are you with us?
We've been hearing every week or so about T-Trak, and so I thought it might be wise to go back to the original things and talk about NTrak. And the new thing in NTrak in the last few years is balloons and peninsulas. If you've been to many shows, you may have seen balloon modules. They come in various sizes, styles, and types. And there are no really firm rules. If you look at the NTrak book and all that stuff, this is all pretty new stuff, and there's no rule to it. And that's kind of done that way on purpose. We may in the future have to think about getting some rules on that, but so far we haven't. So let's see if I click this. All right. So peninsulas, they can be a branch line off of a main loop. They can be an independent branch line, just a one piece of modules with a balloon at each end. And the thing that's unique about them is it gets you off the main red line route where you can do some switching and stuff, which is becoming, operations is becoming a big thing these days. And having a place to do operations instead of just making the loop and running the layout is something that is becoming very attractive to people. So we'll look at some of these things in a little more detail. Now, for a peninsula, you've got to have 3 pieces. You got to have some place to start it, which is usually coming off of a junction module. You can have any group of standard NTrak modules coming off of that. And at the other end, you need a balloon. And a balloon is a module that goes out, loops around, and comes right back where it came from. And the trick in the balloon module is whether you have 3 lines, red, yellow, and blue, or whether you have 4 with red, yellow, blue, and green, you still have to get back from one to the other and make it work and make sure that your electrical connections are right and you're not crossing plus and minus. So we'll be talking about that a little bit too. Here is, here's an example of what you could do with balloon modules. Now, you've heard me talk in years past about non-standard modules, and you'll notice up here in the left on these odd things, these are the 60-degree modules. 3 of them make a 90-degree corner. If you get them in the right lengths, you can match up pretty well. So this is kind of how you can do something different and unique with your loop. But you notice here where my arrow is a standard junction module, and you come off and you have, this is a 2.5 by 4 foot balloon module, and I'll get into that deeper here in a minute. Here's another one down here in the bottom left. And what happens is your normal red line route will run around the loop, but won't go out here. You can use this to stash a train, as much as a 20-foot train. That thing is 22 feet of base on the outer line. You go out the red and come back the blue or the yellow. We'll talk about that later. The other thing here on this junction, where my arrow is now at the bottom, it goes all the way across here to a 4 by 6 balloon. And this one is what I call our operating peninsula. And it's designed where you can make the main traffic stay onto the red line route and not come out here, or you can use this as a red line route and has switching too. So how do we do that? Well, let me first tell you, here's a small one. This is just 2.5 foot by 4 foot modules that has a loop and lets you run around with just a few modules. If you're trying to do a real small show and you don't have a lot of space, you can put this up against the wall. You don't have to put a couple of an inside and outside corner in it. You can just have a straight little strip along here, and you can run trains with a real simple setup. So that's the 2.5 by 4 foot balloon. The thing about that is it's small, and so you have a small radius to get the curve. With 2.5 feet, that's 30 inches. And so you get a little inch on the edge, you only got room for a 14-inch radius curve, which is below the specs for any NTrak operation. So if you use a little 2.5 by 4 foot balloon, you're really restricting your layout to 4-axle engines and short cars. But that's not necessarily a bad thing if you've got a small space. Here's what the one I designed looks like. You have the red line route coming out, going around and becoming the blue line. Now, if you're looking, this is the left side, so technically you'll be coming from the blue line this way if you were right-hand running, come back out the red line, and the yellow line becomes the siding off the red, where you can have some industries out here in the balloon. And you can see, well, what do I do here? There we go. You can see here that this thing angles out, and this is your 2 foot by 4 foot section here, and this is that 6-inch extension on the front here. But it ties into a standard module right here. Track wiring on this, the red line, the standard wiring is, the plus is to the front rail, and our red rail and wire, and the yellow and blue line, they're all the same way. But on this layout, with it's a function of the balloon that you're using. With these 2.5 by 4 foot, the blue line, you have to have your blue line reversed, because you notice it's come around if it plus is on the outside. As you get around here, the plus is now on the back side. So you have to do that. And if you have modules in between, as it showed up here, and you have your power pack up in here, when you put the power on it, you've got to put the blue line power in reversed. So the plus is onto the back side, where on the yellow and red, the plus is on the front side. And what controls that again is how your balloon is wired and how it's hooked up. So let's go on to that. And here's an example of that balloon. You come out, the red line comes out around here. All of a sudden, it's the blue line, comes back in here. The yellow line does some industries and ties back into the front to make the loop. Here's the other side, same thing, inverse. Here's the red line coming to the yellow, the blue comes around, becomes the red. The yellow has these sidings in the industries in the module. Let's look at the 4 by 6 balloon, which is a bigger thing, and that you can have 22.5 inch and 21-inch radius curves. There's 2 curves making the loop around on the balloon, on the 4 by 6 balloon. And you 4 feet, that's 48 inches, that's 24, and you've got to come in a little bit, so 22 and a half, 21. That meets blue line specs. It's a little tight for red and yellow line, but it does meet blue line specs, and we all know we can run pretty much anything on the blue line on NTrak, so that works. Here's an example of the one I have designed that I use with my club. Again, it's clockwise. You're on the right side, so the clockwise, the red line comes in here, and it splits right here where the arrow is. The main traffic comes out this, comes over here and turns onto the inner loop, comes around to the top, and comes back in, and has a choice, but you design it to go to the yellow. And that leaves the blue line. When you come out on that and go with the blue line, you can do operations all the way back in to the junction module, where most of your buildings are and most of your industries are in a module. They're off the blue line. And so you can have the traffic running on the red and coming back on the yellow, while your blue line can be industries. Also here within the balloon, you will have to get into the yellow line a little bit, so it calls for a little bit of traffic control, but it gives you a chance to do those things. Here's the other side, flip deal. The same thing applies here though. The yellow line, because it runs more essentially in parallel with the blue, since it's the return line, the plus is on the back side on the blue and the yellow. The green, I'm not sure how it works because I never dealt with the green line with my club, but it's not that hard to figure out which way is going to work for you, because it all depends again on what you have at your junction. If you're doing it here, this would be on the plus would be on the back side if it tied into this stuff, unless you came in here and had a phase reversal, what do you call it? Help me here, folks. Change the polarity. And you can have this on these modules. My module is designed where I can have a sensor on this thing, an AR1 is what I'm trying to think of, where you can switch the polarity on this and you can wire these normally. But if you wire this back and you plug it through, again, where you have your power, you got to put the blue and yellow with the plus on the back track, and the minus the plus. The red line is normal. So there's roughly what this looks like, and with this, you know what to do with your layout. So for ideal operations on this 4x6, red out, yellow back, which is a red line route, and the blue is for bidirectional switching. Requires, one thing you have to do that is when you get back, we've talked about this, no reversing loop needed. Let's talk about this here. When you do this and you have your power coming in here, you're on the blue line for your local stuff, and your red line route is coming back on the yellow. So right here, where this little thing says red, that is a standard 2-foot module, but there is a crossover from yellow back to blue here. And that gets your through traffic back to the blue line to come back into the junction. So all this from where my arrow is this way to the right is all where you do your switching, and you can be having trains out there doing switching and not interfering with the traffic on the standard red line route. Or you can cut the red line route here and say it has to go around this 4-foot corner here and stay on this loop. But just doing this adds a tremendous amount of freedom to do the things you want to do out here, to operate if you're interested. If you get tired of just running around the circle, or if you're like me and your legs don't work anymore, you can sit pretty much still without doing a lot of moving and mess with your trains and have a good time. I get tired of running around the loop. And so this is the thing for me. So the idea here is to say it's a whole nother way to look at modular model railroading. It's not just a loop of track. No matter how fancy you make the loop with curves and reverse turns and all that sort of stuff, peninsulas add a whole different perspectives. A lot of you have seen the stuff that John has done on the East Coast with the clubs out there. They've got several of these. They have this, what they call NTrak 2000 or something. John, is that what you call it? I forget, but they do a lot of this. They've got several balloons and they've got a lot of reversing loops with the AR1s to control it. With this simple thing here, you do not need a reversing loop. As long as you get it hooked up right in the first place, it works okay. If you want to be sure, you can put a reversing loop on these loops right here on this blue module as an insurance, but it's not necessary. So with that exposure, I'm open to any questions you may have. I'm going to release the screen sharing here, where we can go back to just talking. And if you have anything you'd like me to explain more, now's the time to ask.
Any questions for Razor?
Either I'm really good or I bored the hell out of you, one way or
Well,
the
I have
other.
Razor. I have a comment and a question. The comment first. I'm just back an hour or so ago from helping to set up a Northeast NTrak layout for this weekend up in Concord, New Hampshire. And I've been a part of Northeast NTrak for 12 years or so. And it's a club that Bruce was involved in early on. It's been around for 30 something years. And we are, in kind of a funny, ironic way, we are just discovering balloon modules or rediscovering them again. And the most common thing I hear from the layout coordinators is how much of a relief it is to not have to worry that everybody's going to show up so that you can make the loop, right? You know, if somebody calls up on Sunday morning and they've got the flu, you know, we take their module out and we just move on. So in addition to operations, there's just that freedom to kind of, you know, reorganize kind of right on the fly.
You don't need to worry
That's
about
very
all four
true.
corners showing up.
Right. So
What
that's
was
my
your
comment.
question, John?
The Austin
question-
NTrak group is setting up next weekend, and we're running 2 peninsulas with balloons. And they've been known to, for the last few years, they've run at least some peninsulas, and we've got the one designed for 2 this next weekend.
Yeah. It's made me realize that the very next module I should build is a loop, because it just gives you a lot of freedom. And you see this a lot in Fremo N, and the loops end up being really important to the layout. The question I have for you, Razor, is you kind of alluded to the idea of putting in a crossover. That's really important if you're going to think about operations. What I found as I'm planning out my modules is not only do I need a crossover, but I actually need 2 so that I can create a runaround track. I wonder if you would comment on that a little bit.
Yeah. What we have you don't know what you're going to get on the modules that are in the middle, but usually you find you've got some crossovers there. The one thing that you do have to be careful about in the 4x6 example I showed, you need to pin or block. We actually took some railroad ties and glued them with a pin on top of them, as you couldn't see. We could put in the middle of a crossover that crossed between the red and the yellow, because you would short out, because yellow's with plus on the back and red with plus on the front. So you have to be careful with that. But between the red and blue, the more you have, the more flexibility you have in the switching to do a runaround to take care of that.
Yeah. So
a lot of us
for
have.
those,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, for those of you who are thinking about it and maybe would like to do operations but haven't thought about it as much. Keep in mind, if you sort of string out a whole bunch of NTrak modules together, you're going to have both trailing and facing industries in sort of pointing in opposite directions, right? And the most important thing you need in that situation is a runaround track so that you can put your locomotive on either end of your string of cars. So, and to have a runaround track, you need two crossovers facing each other, so you can depend on your buddy to build the run in the right way on his module that's going to be next to yours, or else you have to put both of them on yours. So anyway, just a thought for everyone.
One of the things we have is we have a couple of modules that have a small runaround track on the module. You come off the blue line onto a siding that comes back out, and so that gives you a runaround right there. And we've got a couple of modules that are that way, so it's automatically there as long as that module is there. And since it's a club module, it is always there.
Okay.
But other than making sure that you don't, and on the 2 by 2.5 footers, just like you have to have the same thing on the blocking of the crossovers, but there you cannot block crossover from the red to from the blue to the yellow, because the red is one direction and the yellow and the red and the yellow are together and the blue is separate. Where on the 6 foot, the red is separate and the yellow and blue are together. And all that is only because that's the way the junctions are designed. Now, when you get into adding blue line and maybe you're taking red to blue and yellow to green, you can get into all sorts of things. And I didn't want to get into great detail because your imagination is the only thing restricting you. And then mechanics and electronics are going to limit your options. Or they're going to confound your brain, one or the other. So again, that's kind of the idea here.
That was fantastic. Yeah.
Razor, on the reversing loops, what are the black dots? Are they isolation?
No, the black dots, let me bring it up again. Black dots are just power connects. I have a connection every so often. That's where I put power drops every couple of feet. And it doesn't have anything to do with anything else. The purple lines here and here and here are block breaks. They're insulated right there at these places. So that's so this red-green thing here can have an AR1 on it. And the same thing with the yellow-orange, there's one on each side, so that can have an AR1 on it or whatever brand reversing block you have. So that's the only thing that needs to have a reversing loop on it. Whatever these industries are, they go whatever this line that's going to them is.
Okay, thank you.
Was there another question?
Razor, I had a comment. I didn't hear John chime in on the Eastern. We're the Eastern Inlines group with all of them. Well, not all the clubs, but some of the clubs from North Carolina, or actually South Carolina up to New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and when we do the Eastern Inlines type style modules, we have the balloon modules, the junction modules, but we have no loop, and we have all green line also.
Okay.
So Danville, awesome. Virginia, and wherever New Jersey Southern is setting up, you're generally going to see that.
They're really nice, and with that NTrak 2000 that you use, you've got it down. I do think, if I recall right, you do have quite a few AR1s on there to keep it all in tune. Is that correct?
Yes, all the balloons will have to have AR1s generally, because there is some reversing going on in some situations, because we've actually got the 4 lines and sometimes 5 lines, because some of the modules have orange also. So Yeah, there's some reversers in there.
You don't want to get too difficult at the very beginning. I suggest people start with something simpler like this, and once
Yeah.
they get that on, you can experiment to expand it. You also notice that this really is two separate modules that are stuck together. You've got a 6-foot module and a 4-foot module, and I've kind of cropped them. I one time had a design where I had a little post sticking up in the air about here and over about here, where it stuck up about 4 or 5 inches, and you could flip this one up over that one for travel, and then just open them back up and clamp them together. But I figured that we've got thinking about more, though that's too much work. It's easier just to hook them together like any two modules, clamping them on, having a couple of dowel rods to get them aligned, and then just clamp them together.
Very good, Razor. I appreciate that. I'll note that Brett said in the chat, you know, keep in mind T-trackers too. Same thing, right? These balloon modules can have the same function for flexibility in T-Trak layouts as well. So good comment there, Brett. All right, let's move on to our next thing here. Let's learn a little bit about LEDs with Steve.
So there's a lot of ways to bring your modules to life. One is doing things like putting people on them. Animation's another way, and lighting's certainly a way. So for those of you who were at the NREL meeting last month, when it was being done live from Evanston, my two modules were there that are lit up. And you may have heard Lee Calkin say, "Oh, what's all this light down here?" And so he walked down the line to where my two modules were. It wasn't my great modeling that drew him down there, it was the light. And the light will draw visitors to your modules too. And it's easy to do. I've done hard, I don't do hard anymore. Hard is stupid. Things like light are just too easy to do. Kind of remember this picture. Look how this smoke looks like it's got the fire up in it. I've got another picture where the smoke isn't on it, so you don't get to see that. But I like the KISS principle. I like it easy. I don't need hard anymore. I also love low voltage because it's easily available on your layout. The wiring is a lot less bulky. LE Tech has virtually no heat. So you don't have to worry about putting lights inside your plastic models and building them. And in my case, using low voltage, I won't be in much danger of shorting out my pacemaker. So some of you may share that with me. So here are some different uses that you can do with LEDs. A lot of guys don't realize, but like this airplane, you can actually put the lights in a plane. Everybody knows you can, light up trains, cars, trucks, that kind of stuff. But look down in the right corner, look at that jet, how they got the engines lit up. Up at the top where they got the lights over the Christmas tree lot. Doesn't that make it look a lot more like Christmas trees? What's going on out there? So light can really add a lot to the layout. You all know about being able to add building and fire to your layout. It's easy. So what have I done with it? Well, this is that module I just had up. So there's 14 fire trucks, police cars, ambulances, all kinds of stuff in this. And this is a 1-foot T-Trak module. But because of all the light, it plays much bigger than 1 foot. So I don't have the smoke on this one, but it shows the lights going. And you don't need central flash circuits. You don't need an Arduino. You don't need any of that stuff. So I use Evans Design flashing LEDs. And the LED comes with the flash circuit built into it. It looks like a little stepped-on raisin on one of the wires. And so all you got to do is install it in each one of these vehicles, and you just install the light. And that flash circuit is down about 6 inches on the wires. So the flash circuit's all hanging underneath this layout. And I didn't have to do anything. All I had to do was drill a hole in the truck, stick in the light, hook it up to power. I'm done. And I didn't have to have an Arduino or something to time it, because the LEDs, when I first plug this in, all 14 will flash at once. And that is the last time they flash together, because they all have their own little life and they all start flashing individually. So I didn't time that. It's just doing it all on its own. Come on, let's go to the next slide. So this is what the LED looks like with the flash circuit on it. The LED that I use from Evans Design is for N scale. The best size is Pico, P-I-C-O. And you can see the flash circuit, the resistor, the rectifier, all of it is this little squished on raisin further down the wires. So all you have to do is hook this thing to a 9-volt battery and you're done. So having mentioned 9 volts, I'm going to mention that you can get these things in 3 volts, 5 to 12 volts, 7 to 19 volts. 3 volts are typically run off DC. The 5 to 12 you typically run off DC. 7 to 9 you can get them run off AC, DC, and DCC. A circuit like this whole thing costs $375. So if you're putting that in a $40 Athearn fire truck, it's not much of a big deal, is it? $375. And I centralized and I standardized on 9 volts. I did not want to mix 3 volts in there. I didn't want to mix 12 volts in there. I made everything 9 volts, so it all runs off the exact same power. Make your life easy. Don't complicate it. And now they're starting to do these chips. So they'll also run off. They've got a converter for LED. And like off of a 9-volt battery, you can run as many as 50 of these chips. So I mentioned Evans Design for E24 up in Wyoming last month. They gave me a discount code because I was doing this same clinic up there. They gave me a discount code. So if you want to take your phone and quick take a snapshot of this, this is good until 8/31, and it's 15% off of everything on that site. And if you haven't been on Evans Design site, go there. If nothing else, just go there to look at the gallery of all the pictures that people have done with LEDs. If that doesn't stoke you up and get you to put LEDs on your layout, nothing will. So the way I do this is like with a fire truck or a police car or whatever. I drill a hole up from the bottom. Then I push the LED up and out of that hole. I'll show you an example of that in a minute. And I let it stick out about 4 or 5 inches. And then I either take clear silicone or tacky wax and put it in the hole and then pull the LED down until it's on top of the vehicle and the hole's filled. And if the hole's a little big, you can always paint it. If you have an LED that's too bright, you can put a little paint on it. But this stickum does great. And then I've just got the wires under the vehicle, and I always glue the wires to the bottom of the vehicle, just so on the bottom of my layout, if I catch one of those wires, I don't pull the LED out of the vehicle and have to go through getting it off the layout and all that stuff. And also, I'll give you another tip I do. Maybe I'm paranoid. I get the LED out of the package. I touch it to a 9-volt battery to make sure it's working. I drill a hole in the vehicle. I put it up through the hole. I touch it to a battery to make sure it's working. I pull it down in the tacky wax. I touch it to the battery to make sure it's working. At every step, I make sure it's working, because I don't want to get to the end and have it not working and then have to try to figure out what the problem is or where I went wrong. That's just a tip from an old technician. So this is another module I had there. So this is a Santa Fe depot. And here I did not use loose LEDs like that. I used strip LEDs. I'll show you a picture of them in a minute. So in this depot, there are 12 LEDs on this side of the building, 12 LEDs on the other side of the building. There's 6 LEDs in this part of the depot, 6 in this one, and this building over here has got another 12 in it. And then on this radio tower over here, there are 4 flashing LEDs in the middle and a strobe light on top. And of course, you can see that this has got street lights out front. It's also got a lit up clock. It's got a lit up billboard. That's all LEDs. I didn't want my depot to have yellow lighting like they were old lights. I wanted it to look modern. So I used white LEDs so they look like fluorescent. If you want yours to look a lot more like it's old lighting, you can use yellow LEDs. Or you could mix some yellow and some white together. So see this billboard? I wanted to light it up. So I took an LED strip, I buried it in the gravel on the roof, and now my billboard lights up. And the thing I really like best about this whole thing is over here on the right, look at this freight depot door. Look how the light is falling out of the door and across the sidewalk. Doesn't that look totally realistic? To me, that is just incredible the way that light falls across there. And so the LEDs produce enough light that you can get an effect like that. I love it. So this is strip LEDs. So a roll of these things, 300 of them, $11 from Amazon. So think of that, 300 of them for $11. So for me to light all those buildings up, probably cost me $2, maybe $3, as far as LEDs were concerned. Now I've got some connectors that cost a little bit more, but these things have the resistor already built in them, and typically use them 3 at a time. And off this thing, you just cut them apart. If you want 3 of them, you cut 3 of them out. If you want 6 of them, you just cut it at 6. Want 9 of them, cut it at 9. Whatever length you want. And then you can solder wires to the end of that LED strip. Or there's little connectors like this where you can just use screws. But the one I use looked like this, and it's a suitcase connector. So you just stick the LED strip in there, clamp that down on there, and bang, you're done. So one of these connectors and the wires hooked to it, about 6 inches worth of wire. Amazon, $1. Now then, when I had just the 14 LEDs on the fire module, I was using a 9-volt battery. That would last all day long through a show. But then when I built that depot module, that's got enough LEDs in it. I would have needed probably use an LED every 2 hours. So I didn't want to, a 9-volt battery every 2 hours. I didn't want to do that. So I decided, I intentionally do not hook this up to the power system that we're using for the layout. Simply because I don't trust somebody not to hook my 9-volt LEDs into a 12-volt circuit and blow them up, to be honest. So I wanted to hook up a transformer. So what I did, got on Amazon, found a wall wart that puts out 8.5 volts. First of all, I ordered a 9-volt one. And when I tested the power, it was 9.5 volts. LEDs are adjustable down, but they're not adjustable up. And that's the last thing you want to do is install, like in the case of that depot, there's 38 LEDs right there as of today. That's the last thing I want to do is blow out 38 LEDs because I put 12 volts to a 9-volt LED. So that 9.5 volt wall wart scared me. So I went back to Amazon, and I got an 8.5 volt. So in Wyoming at E24, I was using the 8.5 volt wall wart that's 1 amp, and I was driving 58 LEDs with that. I don't know what the maximum is I can drive with it. But for $10, well worth it. A roll of wire, you almost are going to have to extend all your wires. And that's kind of the end of the PowerPoint. I'm going to switch over now to a live screen. Okay. So I hope all you can see this truck. So I was talking about drilling a hole through, pulling the LED through. Can you see it?
Yes.
So I pull it all the way through, then I pack it with wax, pull it down in there, let it dry, then I glue these wires to the bottom and install it on the layout. So that's just that simple. You saw that I had street lights in back of the depot. My next thing I'm going to do is in back of the depot, it's a large parking lot. And these are parking lot lights. So same thing. Now, when you do these, they'll send you just the lights, but they'll also send you resistors. You need to put a 3 ohm resistor on the red leg of an LED. So even if you got a 9 volt LED, if you hook that to a 9 volt battery, you're going to blow it up. You need to put a 3 ohm resistor in the red leg. Okay. The instructions just tell you to put a resistor in it. They don't tell you red leg. This was the suitcase connector. As you can see, it's got 2 little pointy things. So when I stick, so when I have the reel of LEDs, I can just stick them in there, close the top, clamps down on them, and I'm all connected. Easy peasy. The way I did the billboard on top of the building is I could have used those flexible LEDs, but I also had some that had 3 on them with wires that were rigid. There again, got this off Amazon. So the 3 of those LEDs buried in the gravel on top of that building are what's lighting up that billboard. So you could do the same thing if beside a road, if you had a billboard, you could do this thing, just stick it in the dirt beside the road, let it shine up on the billboard. Or you could stick this somewhere else where it would shine on a sign or a building front, whatever you want to do. It's easy. Now then, I had one of my club members knew that I had just put lighting kits in about 50 Cato cars. And if somebody from Cato's listening, I'm sorry, but I do not like the way you do your lights. It's overly complicated and it could be much simpler. And I knew it could be. And so this member said, I've got one of the passenger cars from Lowell Smith and I've got his lighting kit. Would you put it in for me? And I thought, well, if I did Cato, I can probably do that. So I looked at Lowell's YouTube video and I thought, I know Lowell, he's a nice guy. I said, Lowell, I thought, there is no way that that's that easy because that is way too stupid easy. But his lighting kit looks like this board. It's a rigid set of LEDs. But on the end, there are 2 contact points. With Lowell's cars, all you have to do is pop off the top, literally drop this in there and put the top back on and you're done. And I'm like, Cato, come on, guys. I'm trying to fit your little LED in there and I'm using plastic boards for the light to shine. And I'm trying to get that light to go all the way down. And here with this, I can have lights go all the way down. So then I thought, I could use this. And Rapido used to make, kits for passenger cars. They don't anymore. And so I thought, you know what? If I knew how to do wheel pickups, I could put these in any passenger car. Easy enough. I just need to get wheel pickups. So then somebody told me about model train technology. And Model Train Technology sells these little brass strips. So it's $5 for a set of these. Also, this board is $5. But this set of brass strips is $5. And you could probably do 5 or 6 cars off of this. But all you do is take these, wrap around your wheels, solder wires to them, run it up into your car, and you could solder it right to this. So you could use this to light up any car.
Hmm.
And you'd be doing exactly what Rapido was doing. And then somebody said, well, what about a dome car? And I am almost positive that I could take 2 of these boards and glue them back to back and lay them on the seats with one shining down and one shining up and light up a dome car. I'm almost certain I can do that. So that's going to be a project that's coming. And if I get away with it, you'll probably see an article in the magazine about it. So
wow, fantastic.
I'll put my address and phone number in the chat. If any of you want to get a hold of me and ask about LED stuff, I'd be more than glad to talk to you and help you.
Fantastic, Steve. That's really, really great. Anybody got a quick question here before we wrap that?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
How did you get from the barrel plug on the 8.5 volt wall wart to the red and the black wire on your LED?
I cut the end of the plug off and got 2 raw wires and did it. And then also on Amazon, you can get kits that have tons of those ferrules that have all kinds of other things on the other end. So I've got one I can connect. And on the other end, it's got 2 alligator clips. I've got some that are just bare. And I've got some that have different types of ferrules on them. Amazon is an amazing place for a lot of this stuff. And almost all of it is in the neighborhood of $1 to $1.50.
Yeah.
For you, Steve.
Fantastic.
Oh, your camera's pointing at my desk. It's like, maybe I better go back and no.
This is Razor. I've got a question for you.
Go ahead, Ray.
The Just Plug It stuff that Woodland Scenics has, is that the same 9-volt stuff that you have? Is it 9 volt as well?
Yeah. Yeah. And Woodland Scenics, to me, again, they've kind of got it overcomplicated. And you've got, they got their simple thing where you can, hey, get our kit and you can plug it into our thing and do this with our thing and this with our thing. And to me, Woodland Scenics is just kind of overpriced, and I don't like doing, you got to plug it into my thing.
I was thinking I've got some of that, but I could take off from that with your stuff, and as long as I don't stack too many of them together to get over that 50 units.
Yeah, and if you're just testing and playing with it, just test it and play with it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, as long as you don't go over 9 volts and blow it up, there's not, if you just got 2 wires coming off of it, stick them on a 9-volt battery, see if it lights up. That's
Well, if in the wrong way, it doesn't do any harm. It just doesn't light up. You turn around to get the direction right.
And one recommendation I'd do is I always keep a 9-volt battery. The thing I normally connected in the layout where I would plug it in. I usually keep one of those plugged in on top of a 9-volt battery that's not in its wrapper. Just because one day I was carrying one around in my pocket and I felt my pocket getting hotter and hotter and hotter. That's because the battery was shorting against my keys. So I wouldn't carry I wouldn't have a battery laying around like my toolbox and stuff, or something could get across it and short it, because I think you could start a little fire. Somebody says, nice shirt, Steve. Yeah, this is the E24 shirt for those of you who weren't there.
Hey, I got one.
That's right. Everybody should have been there, shouldn't they?
I got one.
That's right.
Steve, one thing I want to say is that just reinforcing what you mentioned at the beginning, especially at E24, there were about 500 modules to look at between Fremo, T-Trak, and NTrak. There are about 500 modules. And one of the things I noticed is there's 2 ways to stand out in this crowd. One is by being an excellent modeler. And the other one is by putting lights on your module. And you kind of made that point, right?
Yeah, and another thing I do, I've got a 2-inch by 2-inch Bluetooth speaker. And I just set it in front of my module, and I've got a fire engine sound on my phone. And when I
Sound
see
too,
kids
then,
walk by my layout, I punch that siren, and boy, they leave
yeah.
skid marks when they stop.
Well, I definitely want to put some lights in, because it really does make a module pop and gets people's attention.
It really makes it pop, and it's so easy. So just don't do it the hard way.
Well, that was fantastic. I took a whole
Somebody
bunch
just
of
posted
notes
Model
there.
Train Technology has a lighting circuit for dome cars. That's great.
John, I'm going to
Okay.
poll while we continue.
The last thing
we shouldn't.
The last thing I want to say here is just give a plug. Bruce Arbo reminded me to that the 2026 NMRA convention, which will be in Chattanooga, it's a ways out, but there's a lot of momentum already building early for building the largest T-Trak in the history of the world. So if you're interested in that, now's the time to be thinking about that and building your modules, or getting in touch with Bruce, or all of those things. So keep that in mind. That's going to be a big, big event.
Oh, and incidentally, I do not work for Evans Design. A lot of people think I do because I rave about them so much. But I don't work for them. But I'll tell you, they are fantastic people to work with. And when you call their customer service, they will talk you through about anything you need. They are fantastic. And I just put my email in the chat if you want to grab it and ask me questions.
Well,
Dave,
thank you very much for that, Steve.
Can you put that slide with the discount code back up on the screen for a moment?
Yes, I will.
If you can get to it quickly. And also, I want to encourage everybody to answer the poll, because we do take the questions and the answers that you provide to our questions, and use that to guide our future presentations and other activities.
Steve, you may see the message there that we didn't get your email address coming through.
Oh, I guess because I probably didn't press send. You think that'd make a difference?
I would kind of go with that. Yeah. But maybe you should press send every once in a while.
I tried to go back to my camera and just put this thing on my desktop.
There it is. Okay.
Is it there now?
Yep.
It just went away.
Okay, the discount code is E24.
That's it. E24. Looks just like this here.
15% off. Discount code is E24, and it's only good till 8/31. If you go past 8/31 and you want to get something, get in touch with me, because I'm doing this clinic 3 more times. And every time I do one, like at Evanston, they give me a different discount code.
All right.
One last question for him, if you have time for it.
Go ahead.
You were doing a lot of talking about lighting of buildings and stuff like that. What about general lighting, say in a multi-deck layout, to get some of these LEDs up underneath the top level to shoot down on the lower level?
Excellent. Excellent. I just put what they called puck lights. You know, they look like a hockey puck. So I just put puck light LEDs under our kitchen cabinets. It was very easy, and it lights up the counter like crazy.
Same 9-volt stuff, or is it a different stuff?
Oh, no, that's hooked straight into 120.
Oh, okay.
So, Steve, did you, one thing whenever I go on Amazon, sometimes it's overwhelming. There'll be 500 different options. Did you just start trying stuff? You just bought stuff and tried it, or did you have some background in that?
No, yeah, I've got some background.
Yeah.
But, you know, early in my youth, when I joined the Army, they said, you sort of blew the top off the test. And this is in 1965. They said, there's an organization that would like to talk to you called National Security Agency. So I spent some time as an NSA technician. So thank to you for your tax dollars for giving me a great electrical education.
Well, that's super interesting. I belong to another NSA, the National Speakers Association, and
Yeah.
what we say is we're the NSA that talks, not listens. All right, well there we go. That's a ZoomTrak in the books here. So thank you all for showing up and participating. Boy, these subjects were super timely for me today. So thanks to all of our speakers, and we will see you all in Scalers next month, same bat channel. Bye now.